I am Carol Russ. I'm the president of the local league, and we're so glad to see you here. I may be preaching to the choir, but voting has already started. We certainly hope you will vote. Early voting has started at the county clerk's office in a short 2 weeks. More sites will open up. Closest one is Lake Forest City Hall to the south, also Waukegan County Clerk, of course, to the north, and the permit facility of the county to the west in Libertyville. So plenty of opportunities, and I guarantee you know someone who is not registered to vote, which is super easy. They can register online. Did you know you could go on election day to your polling place and get registered there? Look at the county clerk website, see what documents you need. Same with change of address. You don't have to sneak back to your old voting place and hope you don't see your former neighbors. Hi, neighbor. You can go to your new voting place and just bring the necessary documents and get registered. It's the same as a regular vote. Early voting is the same as a regular vote. However you get it done, please do get it done. We would appreciate that. All right, so we have so much to talk about tonight. Would like to talk for a moment about questions. Some of you probably already have index cards in your hand. We'd love to have questions from you as soon as possible. I know we think about them as the time goes on, but the sooner we get the questions, the better. And our question coordinator, we see some already, our question coordinators would like to have them. They want to make sure that all the subjects are covered. That's why we have question coordinators in the back who will then give your questions to our moderator. And I'd like to introduce our moderator today, this afternoon, Suzanne Calder. She's been a league member for almost 50 years, a tremendous accomplishment. She's been president of her home league in Evanston. She's been president of the League of Women Voters of the state of Illinois, and she's been on many task forces for the state, so a tremendous breadth of experience and knowledge. We're very happy to have her, and right now would be a very good time for you to turn off the noise on your cell phone, if you would, please. So we're ready to go. And Sue will now introduce our candidates and discuss how today's event will unfold.
Well, thank you for having me. I just want to reiterate that today's event is hosted by the League of Women Voters of Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, but it's also co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lake County and Mano and Mano Family Resource Center. The format, I'm the moderator, keeping things going. The format for this afternoon includes opening statements for the candidates, Mr. Ben Grum and Ms. Sandy Hart. And following that, there will be questions that have been submitted from the sponsors and from you. And if you have a question that you haven't submitted, just write it down on a card, raise your hand, and somebody will get it. If midway through the debate, you come up with another question, raise your hand again, you'll get another card, and we'll get sure that gets in the queue. The questions will be reviewed by the panel in the back for appropriateness for issues for Lake County or the Forest Preserve. So we won't have any questions on national defense or state funding for schools in Illinois. It's just Lake Forest and the Forest Preserve. And the people in the back will be sorting them for duplication and to make sure that they are on a variety of subjects and appropriate for the topics today. The candidates drew for order of speaking, and they will rotate throughout the debate, but the closing statements will be in reverse order of the opening statements. So Mr. Grimm, when we get around to it, will go first for opening statements, followed by Ms. Hart, and then Ms. Hart will go for the first question, will go first. So we'll just keep rotating until we get to the end of the event. And the magic number for all the statements, the answers to the questions, is 1.5 minutes. And the timers will keep you posted as well as the candidates. And the timers are sitting over there. They will raise a green sign when 1 minute has been used up. They will raise a second sign for 30 seconds, yellow, and then a big red sign for stop. I will allow the candidate to finish their sentence as long as it's not a run-on sentence, okay? The program is being videotaped and will be on the League of Lake Forest, Lake Bluffs YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit it at some point in the future. Finally, I too ask you to turn off your cell phones and also keep them in your pockets. I've already seen somebody taking a selfie, but we don't want any video or tapes being done here. This is being videotaped and will be shown on the YouTube channel. So I also ask that you as the audience do not react visibly, verbally, to the answers to the questions. So that just takes time away from the candidates getting more questions. So if we just stay quiet, take it all in, and then if you have a question for them from what they said, raise your hand and get a card, and it can be addressed. So I think with that, we'll start our debate. And Mr. Grimm will go first with his opening statement of 1.5 minutes. Grimm. Grum.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Ben Grum. Close
Okay.
enough. Hi, my name is Ben Grum. I am obviously running here for Lake County Board. This is my first time running for public office. I'm excited to do that and engage with the community and fulfill this role. I am a longtime Lake Bluff, Lake County resident. My first year of life is the only year that I did not live here in Lake County. Grew up in North Chicago, Knollwood, then Lake Bluff, Libertyville, and now back to Lake Bluff. So been kind of all over the county. The experience that makes it so I think I could serve on the board and do all of you a wonderful job is I've been in public service since I was 15 years old, started with the City of Lake Forest on a work permit, worked my way up through the ranks, became a police officer, and then school resource officer, sergeant, commander, and that's where I currently serve as the commander of afternoon shift. I have all the officers from 3 in the afternoon till 11 o'clock at night that are under my purview and my supervision and leadership. During that time, I got my education from first the College of Lake County. I should start before that. I was the first graduating class of the Lake County Technology Campus to get an EMT license out of high school. We're the first, before that it was just a certification, but after that it was the first class that got an EMT license. Then went to CLC for fire science, and then North Park for business, and then followed up with an MBA with a certificate in human resource management. While, if both of those weren't enough, at the same time, I ran a small business, Silver Star Home Services. We serviced 180 driveways and 6 commercial parking lots, and started that business from me in a pickup truck and built it. And I was just telling the story the other day. Early on, there were many a Friday I had to go pick up my paycheck from work and drive to my bank to cash it so I could make payroll. And that's a struggle as a small business I think a lot of us have in getting started and making the American dream for ourselves. And that's something that if you don't do it, you don't really understand. So the combination of my public service in conjunction with running a small business and raising a family, I think makes me uniquely qualified to enter the Lake County Board and tackle the tough challenges we have ahead as a community.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this event today. My name is Sandy Hart. I'm the chair of the Lake County Board. I'm running for re-election to my district, which includes Lake Bluff, Gurnee, Waukegan, and Great Lakes. My only job is representing my district on the board and Lake County government at the local, state, and federal level, and with the Naval Station Great Lakes. I've served on the board for 12 years and honored to have been elected by my colleagues to serve as chair of the board for the last 6. I have a BA from Indiana University School of Business and an MBA from DePaul University. In the private sector, I manage multi-million-dollar budgets, and I rely on this experience on the county board since much of what we do is the fiscal oversight of county operations. I'm proud of our responsible stewardship of taxpayer money. We've increased our investment in veteran services, public safety, transportation, and behavioral health. I've lived in Lake Bluff for almost 25 years. I'm a member of Lake Bluff Open Lands, Garden Club, and Women's Club. I also served on the Park District Board for 7 years. I'm proud to have led the referendum for our elementary school, and next week is the 15th anniversary of that ribbon cutting. My husband Tom and I have been married for over 26 years. I'm the mom to Emily, Katie, and Tommy, who all attended Lake Bluff schools. I also serve on the Forest Preserves Board, and with nonprofits, foundations, and other government partners, we are improving the quality of life for our residents. I look forward to talking today about what we've done and our plans for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So our first question is directed to Ms. Hart. What do you consider the most important issue for the Lake County Board, and how will you address it?
Thank you for that question. Right now, I would say it's really the inflationary pressures that we are seeing. We budget accordingly and conservatively, and we are constantly monitoring our budget to make sure that we continue to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Flooding continues to be a massive problem here in Lake County. We're not called Lake County because of our proximity to Lake Michigan. We're called Lake County because of the vast amounts of wetlands that were here. And so as a result, there is a lot of flooding in my district in particular. I was just at a stormwater meeting, I think it was on Tuesday evening in Knollwood. They experienced a great deal of flooding, so we're putting together a plan there. And I would say public safety is always top of mind for people. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in collaboration with our municipal and fire districts to create the Regional Operations and Communications Facility in Libertyville. That is a partnership with over 24 different entities and will help improve public safety.
Thank you. Mr. Grum.
Yeah, I believe public safety right now should be at the forefront of what we're focusing on. Our sheriff's office is down, I believe 50 deputies. That's just patrol. It has nothing to do with the jails. The jails are down so much that we are outsourcing our prisoners to McHenry County, which, by the way, a few weeks ago we had a bus crash with 16 inmates on it, and if you don't think that's going to cost us money, it will. Our state's attorney's office has experienced extremely high turnover. These are the people that represent each and every one of you if you're the victim of a crime. They need to be the best and the brightest. And the problem is the turnover rate's so high, they don't have mentors to work from. And that's going to be a serious issue going forward. On top of that, I would agree with Ms. Hart that flooding in Lake County is a big issue. We've experienced it here with our viaduct, which is the only way to get from the east side to the west side of town, and it floods multiple times a year. And if you're part of one of our emergency services, you know the workaround is not efficient and safe. It involves going through a gravel lot and unlocking gates and driving across train tracks that are unregulated and going down an alley and then coming back to 176, which is not efficient when you need emergency services. Knollwood, I've been on the Lake Bluff Baseball Board my whole life, or not my whole life, my children's whole lives. And we are constantly canceled out of practices at the park in Knollwood at West School Park. And that is something that we should be on the forefront of all of our minds to make sure that we get the flooding under control in Knollwood, and there's significant things that can be done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Grum, you get the next question, answer to the next question first. Let's just turn to the Forest Preserve. What are the issues that are most important to you, and how will you address them?
Yeah, the issues to me are wetlands preservation. I mean, that is the natural way that we filter our water. I think it's extremely important that we're preserving it and that we're keeping it for generations to come. I also think another area that we've got to keep focus on, I know we're doing a lot with buckthorn and invasive species. I think we need to continue and really focus on the land we have. Last time I checked, I think the Lake County Forest Preserves is the second largest landholder in Lake County, if not the first. And that's a lot of land to maintain, and that's a lot of land to make sure that we're utilizing it and making it accessible and beautiful and something that we can all enjoy. So I would really like to focus on making sure that every square inch of that land is being used so to our enjoyment and to the benefit of our environment.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hart.
Thank you so much. So the forest preserves, we have just short of 32,000 acres, and wetlands are certainly a part of that acreage. I would say that really the restoration and the protection of all of that land is the most critical thing. Restoration is actually very expensive, and you need to really continue to come back and make sure that the invasive species don't start to take over. Lake County is home to more endangered species than any other county in the state of Illinois. And what we do on the forest preserves, I'm very proud of. We spend a lot of time on that restoration. We couldn't do it without the help of our volunteers. Literally, the work of our volunteers equates to millions of dollars that would otherwise be spent by taxpayers. So we work with our volunteers. We get a lot of grants from nonprofit agencies and other governments in order to protect that land. We recently had an addition to our forest preserves at Fort Sheridan. Open Lands gave us some property so that we could continue to protect it even better than really Open Lands has been doing. So I'm really honored to get to serve on the Forest Preserves Board to be working on that expansion. We have Oriole Grove right here in Lake Bluff, and that master plan has already been completed. I'm very excited to see that come to fruition. There's an anonymous donor right here in Lake Bluff who has given a great deal of money and volunteer hours, and that is going to be a spectacular space. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's turn to a specific issue that's come up. And Ms. Hart, this is to you. What do you think about the role of the county board in addressing mental health needs?
Thank you. Addressing mental health needs is an enormous part of what we do in terms of funding operations, and I just want to go back to a couple things before. There are some statements about the jail and what's happening with the state's attorney's office and the sheriff's office. Those are separate elected offices, and the county board doesn't have anything to do with those decisions. We do, however, manage the budgets for those two departments, so any conversations about what occurs in the jail, the transfer of those people out to McHenry, those are decisions by the sheriff's office. So, and now I've almost forgotten what the other question was.
How should the county board
Thank you. So the
address
mental health, thank you so much. Thank you, Ben. Is the expansion of providing crisis behavioral health needs, that's 24/7 care through our collaboration with the Independence Center. The Lake County Health Department is responsible for providing a great deal of mental health services. It's critically important, and one of the things that I'm very proud of is our expansion of behavioral health services, particularly for children. So we are continuing to provide more care for people who may not otherwise be able to afford it, and we work very closely with our regional superintendent of schools. That's part of our Lake County budget to ensure that the kids in our schools have access to mental health needs as well, or mental health services, excuse me. So that's a big part of what we do and what we fund. Thank you.
Mr. Grum.
Nobody knows better than me the effects of mental health on our communities. We respond, I would say more than 50% of our calls on a day-to-day basis are mental health related to some degree. So we interact with people who are going through crisis quite frequently. The things that we've done locally is to add a clinical licensed social worker to our staff in Lake Forest. This is something that we've seen the positive effects from. We also are a member of the COAST program with the Lake County Sheriff's Department, where our officers work with mental health professionals across the county. The two areas that I would like to see improvement, one is the living room, which is a place where we bring people in mental health crises. Currently has workers that do intake work and then refer out services. I think we've learned over time, the sooner that a person in crisis can see a licensed professional and have their issues treated, the more likelihood that they're going to follow up with treatment and there's going to be long-term results. So one of the things I would like to do, if I were put into office or push for, is to expand the services offered there to include licensed professionals around the clock and not just referral services. Right now, if it's something that needs a referral, they have to go to an ER, which is an extremely inefficient process and typically does not work well. The second thing, many departments are getting social workers across Lake County. I would like for the county health department or sheriff's office to take over coordination of all of those social workers to provide services around the clock rather than 9 to 5.
Thanks. And Another issue for Mr. Grum. Is there a need for different types of housing to meet the needs of the people in Lake County? And if so, what should the board do about that?
I think having affordable housing is extremely important. I do believe the board should take some interest in developing some of these projects. I think these projects should be undertaken with a partnership with private entities and not county government. I think it will run more efficiently and be more responsive to people's needs if it is a partnership with a private entity who are really implementing and designing and doing the process of filling affordable housing in Lake County. But yes, I think that's key to everything. Having economic growth is, sorry about that. To have economic growth, we need the people to work, and we need to have a good, strong labor force, and having affordable housing. So not only can we keep residents here who are struggling to keep up with the bills, but also bring in new residents to help and continue to develop our economy would be great.
Thank you. Ms. Hart?
Thank you so much, and I just want to point out that both Coast and that living room model with the Independence Center is funded by the Lake County Board. So housing is actually our most critical need here in Lake County, and we're not different from other communities across the state and across the country. We already fund affordable housing projects throughout Lake County through our Housing Community Development Commission. Those federal dollars pass through, and so we work very closely on affordable housing developments, and we have some of those already. Some are in the pipeline and some have already been built over the last year. However, there is absolutely a need for more of these housing developments. If you live here in Lake Bluff and have ever traveled north on Green Bay Road, you may have seen Halsey Village. That is a military-owned property. It is on the the east side of Green Bay Road, north of 137. I am working with Senator Duckworth's office as well as the Naval Station Great Lakes in seeing what we can do to clean up that area and have that be a space for more affordable housing as well as commercial development along the corridors of Green Bay Road and 137. But affordable housing and attainable housing is really critical for our workforce. We have many Fortune 500 businesses here in Lake County and other small businesses that require a strong workforce, and so having different housing opportunities here for families and for young people is absolutely critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hart, you have the next first answer to the question. We've got a couple questions on finances for the Lake County. And the first one is, what is your opinion of the property tax burden in Lake County? Should the county shift its revenue sources from its current mix of sales and property taxes?
Thank you for that question. Our revenue actually comes from many more places than that. Our property taxes are about 29% of our overall revenue. Some of it is also some services, then there's intergovernmental, and then there's also grants. So, but I would say, look, we all live here. We have high property taxes. About 8% of what's on your tax bill is Lake County government. And what do you get for that 8 cents of every dollar? You get your the funding of the judiciary. You get the funding of the Lake County Health Department. All of our county roads, the bike paths that you might enjoy, like the Robert McClory Trail. You get the funding of the jail and our sheriff's office, and then all of the ordinance planning, building, and zoning. So, but really the bulk of the money goes towards the schools. That's not a value judgment. That just is. And then the other portion, about 2% of your property tax bill are our forest preserves. And again, that's just a little less than 32,000 acres. So our portion of the property tax is small, but I'm really proud of the fact that we held the line for the very first time in Lake County government to not increase the property tax levy for our county services for 4 out of the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grum?
Yeah, I think property tax in general is too high. I think we need to correct it. The 5th year that she's speaking about, it doubled, went from 2.4 to 5. I think it's out of control. I think we need to curb it. I think we need to look for other sources of revenue. I think economic development is one. We all drive through Pleasant Prairie and Kenosha, and we see some of the campuses and some of the businesses are moving up there. And if you drive down Sheridan Road in Waukegan and North Chicago, we have vast sections of industrial and commercial areas that can be developed into something that can increase revenues from other sources. Also, the gas tax has been implemented, adding 8 cents a gallon to each and every gallon of gas that you purchase. And I think there's no reason to believe that that's not going to continue to go up in the coming years. I, as a parent, have to balance my budget and my family. As a business owners, we have to balance our budget and the business, and I think it's important that government is held to the same standard. There's always a worthy cause. There's always something that's good and decent that we can tackle and do, but we can't do it on the financial backs of the residents of Lake County. And so we've got to take a look at every program that we currently operate and ensure that we're comfortable in taking that money from people without really direct input and appropriate those funds in that manner.
Thank you. Mr. Grum, you can address the next question, and it follows on the other side of our previous question. Can you please name the 3 items in the county budget that you would eliminate to save money for taxpayers?
I cannot. I will be honest with you. That is something that, as a board member, I would go on and I would review each and every one of those programs. There are literally, I got the booklet the other day. It's like a 100-page booklet of services that the county offers. Before I were to jump and make a statement as to what I would individually cut, I'd want to look at what those services are. And I think just as important as what the services are is their efficiency. I think it could be a very noble cause, but if the efficiencies aren't there and they're not succeeding in the cause that they're supposed to be taken care of, maybe we've got to look at a little different way of doing it, or pass it to some sort of other government entity or private entity to take care of. So I think it's a good question. I absolutely think there's at least 3, but again, without being on the board and this being my primary duty, I feel like trying to pick those out without detailed, thorough look at it would be inappropriate and irresponsible of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hart.
Thank you very much. So just to be really clear, that's not accurate. It is a 4-cent gas tax. It is the lowest gas tax than any other county in the Chicagoland area. And that 4-cent gas tax takes the burden off of our property owners. So if you didn't have that, if you wanted to eliminate that, you would be increasing property taxes. So just to be clear on that, and any increase to our budget, I'm proud to say, has gone to support our veterans. We have the 2nd greatest number of veterans in the state of Illinois, and I think it's critically important that here in Lake County, we continue to honor and support our veterans when they are in need. As far as non-mandated services, that would be one of the things that you would say, oh, we should get rid of that. And I would just, and we do have those conversations, and actually I would argue that anybody running for this board should be thinking about that. So I would just ask, would that be getting rid of the Lake County Children's Advocacy Center? That's a non-mandated service, but what they do is they help children who have been abused. And that is something that's non-mandated, and we think that that is important to provide a space where they can get the help they need, whether that's medical or psychological. So that's a really important thing. But one of the things that I work on, and I'm really proud of, is getting rid of those special districts, drainage districts, sanitary districts, mosquito abatement districts, things that we no longer need to save taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question goes to Ms. Hart. And going back to kind of a mix here, how would you approach issues that may be perceived as having conflicts of interest in your dual role as county board member and Forest Preserve Commissioner?
Thank you, and that's a great question because it actually came up. When we have our forest preserve meetings, we meet in the forest preserves and we have that organizing statute on the wall, and so someone actually had come and spoke about that, and I commented on it, and I said, you know, I'm sitting here looking at the speakers and that organizing statute is right there, and it's really important. We hold two different roles, and when we are serving on the Forest Preserve Board, that must be our focus. It cannot be like, well, good thing I'm on the county board because now I can use this position on the Forest Preserve Board. So that is really important. And so any conflicts, I'll be honest, I haven't seen conflicts of interest that have come up. But that is that's how I look at it. You can't look at it and say, well, that'd be really good for Lake County government, so I'm going to vote this way. We on the Forest Preserves Board are held to protect and maintain our open spaces, and decisions that we make need to be from that perspective. Thank you.
I'd like to start by apologizing. Ms. Hart's right. It was 4 cents, not 8. I'm just predicting the future. So I'm sorry about that. With that said, the Forest Preserve and the Lake County Board roles, I don't think they're a conflict. I think everybody on them can separate the duties of both jobs and make sure they're doing and operating in the best interests of both. With that said, if I were to get on the board, the one thing I think we should look at, and it's not so much because of a conflict of interest, it's more to get more people involved in government and local entities. I don't think they need to be overlapping. I don't think the county board needs to be on the Forest Preserve. I think there could be representatives from the county board. The idea of getting more of the community engaged by serving on that board is something other counties do. This is not it's not universal in every county in the state that you are on both. So the idea of making it so that board is a little bit more independent of the Lake County Board, and encompasses more people to step up and fill their civic duty. I also think there are people that would want to be on the Forest Preserve District that might not necessarily want to be on the county board. But I absolutely think they have to be working in unison, but I would be open to any sort of research or ideas of expanding that and including more people in our local government and taking more interest in what's going on.
Thank you. So we're going to stick now with the Lake County Forest Preserves. And what's your opinion of them selling 52 acres of the Waukegan Savanna to the Waukegan Airport?
Generally, I think I support it. I have not gotten to see the inner workings and detailed workings of that project or proposal. The two things I would want to see before a formal decision would ever be made is, one, what is going to be the economic impact of this, and where do we think it's going to better us as a county, and see the impact of what that looks like, in conjunction with obviously an environmental impact on what it would do to the environment around there, and what we would do to replace that land somewhere else in the county to ensure that we are keeping the open lands and that we are reinvesting any sort of money or loss of land in that deal somewhere else in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to be clear, for the gas tax to get to 8 cents, that would be decades away. By state law, it can't increase that quickly. And in the future, the Forest Preserves and the county boards would be separated by state law, because when Lake County gets above 800,000, that would be 2 separate boards. The only 2 counties in the state that operate separate boards is Cook County and DuPage, because they're over 800,000 people. As far as the sale of land for the Waukegan Airport and at the Savannah, the environmental impact study is not back yet from, I think it's the EPA, or the EPA that's working on it, and then there's a separate study And we have not seen that, but I am very concerned about that. That is an area that doesn't have a lot of forest preserves already. We really need to understand not just what the impact is of removing that land from the forest preserves, because remember, we have that organizing statute to protect the land and to maintain it, but it's also what is the impact to the people who live there? What happens when you build that longer runway? Will much larger planes be able to land there? What does that mean for emissions? What does that mean for the schools in that area that is already a disadvantaged area? So that has a real impact to people. So there is potentially an economic development benefit, but it's critically important for understand at what cost. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question goes to you, Ms. Hart. What are your plans to address new migrants in Lake County?
So there have always been undocumented workers and undocumented families in Lake County, as there has been in Illinois and across the country. We have seen some, I can't say it's very many, increases from the buses that have been, buses and planes that have been coming up from Florida and Texas. However, Mano a Mano came to Lake County to ask us to apply for $1 million grant in order to help asylum seekers. And so that grant went through from the federal government. I was at an event last night with Mano a Mano and was able to hear from families who were helped with that money. People are now working. People are learning English as a second language. They are going through the citizenship process. They're finding housing. So, you know, that's what we are doing, is helping people who are coming to Lake County, as they do, and I would say as has always been done. So there hasn't been a change in anything over the last 2 years, 1 year. This is what we've always done, except for that federal grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grum?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the question. I think it's bigger than Lake County. I think we're all human beings, and when we have undocumented workers or anybody else in need, and they are at our doorstep, we have an obligation to make sure that they are taken care of. And that's something that we, as Lake County, we need to continue to do. I do think putting pressures on the federal government to address the issue and be more systematic in what's going on and how we're processing immigrants and where they're going, and giving insight as to where they're all going and what we can expect, so we can plan for that and do our jobs to make sure everybody has a roof over their head and food on the table, I think is needed. And I think that more county governments across the country need to come together and sign something to send to Washington to say this problem hasn't been addressed in years, and it is affecting them. I was on the border in Yuma, Arizona, and what that county down there is having to deal with on a day in, day out basis, and the strain on their resources is immense. And that's where we all got to come together and make sure that there's a formalized plan at the federal level to deal with this issue.
Thank you. The next question goes to you, Mr. Grum. And what role can and should the county board take to improve public safety?
First and foremost is we've got to take a look at recruitment for the sheriff's office. We can't be down 50 people, so we've got to do a study as to why that is. Is it a quality of life thing? I can tell you their salaries are not as competitive with the municipalities. So that's got to be looked at. Also, I think there's obviously other things. This generation of work group, it's not just about money. It's about their quality of life. It's about time off. It's about time with their families. I think there also is obviously nationwide public sentiment directed toward police officers that's not positive. So us as a community, we got to come together and we've got to correct all those problems and get staffing up. I also think we need to get our jail staffing up, obviously. We need to be self-sufficient. We can't be transporting prisoners across county lines to have them housed, and at the end of the day, that is a board issue. The operations of the county stops with the board. That's who's responsible at the end of the day. Yes, the sheriff, yes, the state's attorney are involved, but there are implications that the Lake County Board can take to make sure that these measures are taken care of and done, and that's what I would do.
Thank you.
Thank you. The operations of the sheriff's office is under the purview of the elected sheriff. The board does the finances. The contract to ship people out to McHenry County was signed by the sheriff and not by the county board. So public safety is certainly top of mind for everybody, and I talked a little bit earlier about the Regional Operations and Communications Facility, bringing together over 24 different municipality and fire protection districts. That will help people get their 911 response sooner, and it saves taxpayer money. We've already seen a 911 consolidation here on a smaller scale with Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, Highwood, and Highland Park. This is much larger, and we intend for that to grow with our new building in Libertyville. A study has been done already, phase 1 study on the sheriff's office, and salaries have already been increased for correctional officers as well as our sheriff's deputies. So we look forward to having more people get hired, but again, that's under the purview of the Lake County Sheriff's Office and not the county board. However, we do approve those salary increases, and so the hiring is through the Sheriff's Office. And we also funded the Gun Violence Prevention Initiative. So the Gun Violence Prevention Initiative focuses on those areas, those hot spots in Lake County. That's Zion, North Chicago, Waukegan, Winthrop Harbor, and the Round Lake area. And we have seen gun violence decrease in those areas, and we're very proud of that. That's been a great program, and also workforce development is very critical.
Thanks. And let's stay on public safety for a while. Another question is, what can the Forest Preserve District do to improve access and safety in preserves and parks, which are concerns expressed by minorities, according to the Brushwood Center's report?
Thank you. That's the Brushwood Center. They had an equity report that they recently released, and what the finding was that minorities do not feel safe, and so in our forest preserves and parks, as was stated, and so they're underrepresented in terms of usage as well as even volunteering. So that is a very big issue. Our forest rangers are a separate force. They are not under the purview of the sheriff's office, and our forest rangers, it's important that that we hire people who are representative and come from different areas across Lake County. So we have some folks who have grown up in the North Chicago, Waukegan area, and part of their patrol is the Greenbelt Forest Preserves. They know the people who are in there visiting, and that's really important. But we have a lot of, we have patrols of our parking lots already that occurs, and we are monitoring as best as we can for people who are coming in and out of our forest preserves. For some of them are open, you can always access them, but as we can afford it, we are putting up the gates so nobody can access those forest preserves at night. An example of that is the Lake County Fort Sheridan used to have 24/7 access, and now there's a gate there, and that keeps it safer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think expanding the patrol for the forest preserves, they currently don't work at night. So having people on at night, if you call for the forest preserves at night, you get to the Lake County Sheriffs and they're handling the calls. So expanding that, also expanding the patrol operations to include other assets other than vehicles, so we can expand where they are in these parks. I don't think anybody's nervous about a parking lot. Typically when people get nervous in forest preserves, it's when you're out on trails and you're out away from access to vehicles and cars and people. So getting these officers out on the trails on a regular basis and patrolling them, I think will increase that. I also think the use of cameras and flock cameras are very useful in investigating and monitoring who's coming and going from these forest preserves. It's so expansive. We would never be able to afford the appropriate police response or the appropriate police coverage for these, but we can use technology to replace where we can't put patrol officers all the time. So I think utilizing some cameras and some flock cameras, which we're utilizing in Lake Forest and about to utilize in Lake Forest, or sorry, Lake Bluff, are extremely helpful, and they make it so remotely you can monitor a lot more than what you can with police officers and security guards.
Thank you. Mr. Grum, we're going to stay with the Forest Preserve for just another moment. What can the Cook County Forest Preserve do to prepare for more climate-induced disasters such as flooding?
Lake County, or you said Cook County?
Lake County.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. I think, again, making sure that we have the people and the manpower to keep these lands cleared and to make sure that we're planting the right plantings that can take on these floodwaters when they come is truly important. I know that keeping our waterways clear so the water has a place to go and drain to where it's supposed to is a huge issue, and it's a huge undertaking by stormwater management. So ensuring that that's going on, along with taking the properties that we currently have and making sure that they're being utilized for that if they're wetlands, and then also when we look to the future to possibly purchase more property, make sure that not only are we getting recreational value out of it, but that we can also get value from relieving flood situations like the one that we're experiencing in Knollwood pretty regularly.
Thank you. Ms. Hart.
Thank you, and I'm going to expand that because managing flooding is part of what the Forest Preserve does and what part of the county does. So I'm really pleased that in collaboration with the state, we received over $125 million in Lake County alone. We're the only county in the state of Illinois to receive that money, and that's because we advocated for it. And we are using that to help manage the flooding. So earlier it was brought up about the viaduct flooding. Lake County is helping to pay for that. So that's a big part of what we do. The Forest Preserves, not only it is an important space for native habitat and for recreation, but having all of that property helps maintain and retain water so it doesn't flood people downstream. So when you see all those open lands after a rain and you happen to go out into Oriole Grove or into Lake Bluff open lands, you're not going to see a lot of water, right, sitting on the surface. It's because of those deep-rooted prairie plants that are native to Lake County that is soaking up all of that water. And in the meantime, while it's soaking up all the water, it's cleaning it and it's breaking down all of the contaminants. So as the water continues to flow further south, the water that comes out of Lake County is cleaner than the water when it first came in from over the border in Wisconsin. We get a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen from Wisconsin. So it is a big part of what we talk about. We actually, it's called green infrastructure, and by putting green infrastructure into place, it saves a lot of taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is turning to the county board. The individual that asked this question has a second home in Florida, and if he pays his taxes early, he gets a 5 to 10% discount. Why not offer this program here in Lake County?
That's a good question. And I'd be interested in learning more about that, so please do come speak with me. I would say, so if somebody has their tax bill and they save 5 or 10%, and a lot of people pay that early, who is paying then to make up for that difference? Because it's paying the taxes for the levies from all the different entities, right? Whether it's a park district or a library or school. So if somebody's paying early, that money's got to come from somewhere. So I'd be very interested in speaking to that individual if you could find me afterwards. Thank you.
I agree that it's kind of interesting that that's done. Personally, I think if we're balancing our budgets and we're being good stewards of the money that's entrusted to us, I don't see why we would need it early for government. It seems like an act of desperation because they're unable to pay their bills. That's typically why you offer a discount for prepaying. So although I'm interested, I think, again, first and foremost, we should be good stewards of our money and not need next year's money early, because if we're doing that regularly, I think that's a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the next question is for you, Mr. Crum. What is your position on the Forest Preserve District referendum?
I think the referendum was the appropriate way to handle that issue. It's a significant amount of money, although they say that individually it's not. By and large, it is a lot of money to increase from our taxpayers. I believe in our current economic situation, the most responsible thing to do is put that on a referendum and let the taxpayers decide if now is the right time and that's the right amount to entrust the forest preserve with. Generally, I think I would support it, but I also, it's close enough call with me, and I would want to know what my constituents think, and that's why, again, there's nothing more democratic than to leave it to the individuals themselves, and that's what the referendum's allowing, and so I support the process of government that is taking care of that right now, and the process we're following to make that decision.
Ms. Hart?
Thank you, and I want to be really cautious about how I answer this because as a member of the Forest Preserve Board, I can't advocate, right, for other people to vote for that referendum. I think, however, legally I can state that I am in favor of it. There is a lot of restoration work that can be done in our forest preserves. We already talked about the green infrastructure, so depending upon where those properties are purchased, that eventually ends up saving money. So we're going to see if that referendum passes, Oriole Grove, that master plan being fulfilled, and it really will be spectacular. It will be more walking paths, it'll be more biking paths, it'll be more land that's being restored and land that is strategically purchased in order to create more biking trails throughout Lake County right now, including all the different municipalities and Lake County DOT. We have over 550 miles of bike paths, and the plan is for another 300 miles. And you can see it right here in Lake Bluff. That is part of economic development. People come to Lake County, they spend money in our restaurants, they ride their bikes. We are a recreation destination. We are the third greatest destination for tourism in the state of Illinois. So it's very, I will be voting for it, is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last question for you, Ms. Hart, is what can be done to enforce the leaf burning ban in unincorporated Lake County?
Thank you for that question. I would encourage people to use the nuisance hotline that you use for tall grass and weeds and also for burning. There is an empty lot. I won't give the exact address, but somebody reached out to me to let me know there was burning of pallets. And so I encourage them to call that number, and the Lake County Sheriff's Office came out. There was another call that I got, I think it was a couple weeks ago. They called the Sheriff's Office, the person was ticketed. You know, that leaf burn, and this wasn't just the leaf burning ban, right? They're burning couches, right? Things like that. That is releasing a lot of chemicals into the air we breathe. Lake County is, I think we were about 14 years after McHenry County for banning the burning of leaves. So it is something to get used to. I understand that it's hard to start to mulch leaves instead of burning them, but the quality of our air is really important. We need to protect it. And if you're having an issue, I would just encourage you to call that nuisance hotline. I have the phone number with me. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crum.
Yeah, I think calling the sheriff's office and reporting it. I think as an individual, I can tell you from my experience in law enforcement, if you're willing to put your name on it, you're going to get better results. So be an advocate for yourself. Call, leave your name, tell them that you're willing to sign complaints and that you're willing to testify that that's what you witnessed. And I am positive the sheriff's office will come out and issue those tickets and do their job in that scenario. Also, make sure that you're documenting it, and you can take a picture. You could take a video of what's going on, because a lot of times the sheriff's office is busy. I just stated they're down 50 people, so yes, leaf burning nuisance may not be top on their priority list at the time you call, but I tell people, be relentless, because you never know when we're busy and when we're not in terms of law enforcement. So sometimes we're too busy, and by the time we get there, the issue's been resolved and done, and we can't do anything about it. But don't be deterred. Make sure that you continue to call about those issues, because you will catch us at a time where it is the most pressing issue, and we will take care of it, I'm sure. Sorry, being a cop, I'm speaking for what we do in Lake Forest. The sheriff's the same way. They'll do the same thing. They're great individuals working for the sheriff. So that's what I would do.
Okay, I got a final question just now. We want to do this one?
It's the trick one. I don't know. Can we hear it first, and then we get to vote? Me and Sandy. If we both vote yes, we'll do it.
Okay, I haven't even read it.
Let's hear it.
There's a significant development in the Racine-Kenosha corridor. How can we partner with Wisconsin to ensure Illinois and Lake County are not negatively impacted?
I mean, I'm not even going to begin to speak as to what can be done. I do think open lines of communication and trying to communicate with them and keep a tabs on what they're doing up there and how it's going. I also think it's on us to monitor air, water, earth type qualities along the border to ensure that if stuff that's going on there is negatively impacting us here in Lake County, that it's being addressed. Again, it would, to reach out to them, it would have to be a partnership, and they would have to want to work with us, and I don't exactly know what that would look like, but I definitely think it's something that we should look at as a county and ensure that we're keeping our residents safe and that we're not experiencing any adverse effects from what they're doing there.
Ms. Hart?
Thank you so much for that question. That Racine-Kenosha corridor actually does impact us here in Lake County. The state of Wisconsin has different stormwater values, and by what I mean by that precisely is that depending upon the square footage of the impervious surface that is built, there's a calculation that says, hey, here's how much of a retention or detention basin you need to have. So our numbers, we use more updated rainfall numbers, and so here in the state of Illinois, we require greater space to hold that water than they do in the state of Wisconsin. And I have already traveled to that site. I went up there with our executive director, Lake County Stormwater Management Commission at the time. We took a tour of the site because we're very concerned about the impact that would have on our Des Plaines watershed. There is a lot of houses that is very heavily built, and so when you get rid of that impervious surface, where is that water going to go? It's going to go right down the Des Plaines and flood out the homes in that area. So we are very mindful. We have sent drones up there to take a look at what's happening if they don't allow us on site, because our role is protecting the people of Lake County. It's critically important that we are prepared for what they're doing, and that was one of the arguments that we made when we got that extra money from the state of Illinois for stormwater management. It is because of that very real threat in that area.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go to closing statements. Ms. Hart, you're first.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say thank you again to the League of Women Voters for this event and to all of you for being here today. I am really proud to have led the board as the chair for the last 6 years and to have worked across the aisle and with every level of government to provide excellent services for our residents. It has been a real honor to do this work, and I take it very seriously, and I think that's why my colleagues elected me as chair. Making Lake County a wonderful place to live and to work and to do business and to locate a business here is all I do. It is my full-time job representing you on the county board. I don't do anything else other than being a wife and a mother. So it's all I do. I'm honored to have been endorsed by the Sierra Club, the Lake County Farm Bureau. I am a Moms Demand Action candidate of distinction. Please do look for endorsements that will be coming out soon from the Daily Herald. They haven't endorsed yet, but I'm honored to have always been endorsed by the Daily Herald. And I'm asking for your vote so that I can continue to work full-time for you, representing you on the Lake County Board and the Forest Preserve Board. It's really been the best experience of my professional life, and I hope that you will continue to entrust me to continue to do so. Thank you.
I look forward to representing all of you on the Lake County Board. Ms. Hart's been there 12 years. I'm a big fan of term limits. I'm a big fan of getting everyone involved in our local government, looking in areas that others haven't, coming in from different approaches and different ideas, and bringing different perspectives to the board. The Lake County Board has, as far as I can see, have never had a member of law enforcement on it, ever. I think a 19-person board that does oversee the budgets of state's attorney's office and sheriff's office and the judiciary should have someone from law enforcement on it. We are making critical decisions on what we're funding and the laws that are being passed at the state level. Having someone with hands-on experience as to how to address those issues and how the real world, how they're going to play out in the real world, I think is extremely important. With that said, I think taxes have been a burden on all of us. I think it's been a smokes and mirrors games from the beginning. We didn't raise tax rates. We raised the multiplier. We didn't raise taxes. We implemented a gas tax. Well, the most recent one is taking the veterans assistance money out of the county budget and trying to make it its own line item on the bill, which isn't even legal, but it was to try to show a reduction in county taxes. I think we need to be transparent. I think we need to be open. I think we need to keep our taxes where they're at, if not lower them. And I don't think the transparency's always been there. So that's what you would get from me, transparency in what's going on with your taxes and where they're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I have a couple things to say. There are 2 more candidate forums this week in October 10th. Doesn't give me the dates, but they're at 7:30. One is for the Lake County Circuit Court, Carla Wyckoff and Aaron Cartwright Weinstein. And then also for the Lake County State's Attorney, Mary Cole and Eric Reinhardt, okay. Please Google the League of Women Voters of Lake County, and they will be live on Zoom. Key dates for the fall election. We talked about registration early on, but online registration ends on October 20th. October 21st, early voting begins in the state. Halloween, October 31st, is the last day to request a ballot by mail. November 4th is the last day of early voting. So if you're voting by mail, you have to have it stamped and by then. And then the 5th is Election Day. I want to thank both of our candidates for spending this time with us and really educating all of us in what their thoughts are about the various issues. And thank you also to our hosts, Lake Bluff, the League of Women Voters of Lake Bluff Lake Forest, and our co-sponsors, the League of Women Voters of Lake County and Mano a Mano. Thank you all for coming and spending this beautiful day with us instead of being outside.